You know, have you ever thought about how a single phone call could just completely change your life? Sending you to a country you never planned to visit, to build something you never even imagined? Well, that's pretty much what happened in the Israeli city of Haifa, where a spiritual home for Nepali migrants was born from one totally unexpected message.
I mean, just try to imagine getting a call like this. You're a young pastor in Nepal, you're totally dedicated to your community, and you have absolutely no plans to ever leave your home country. It sounds pretty wild, right? Well, that's the real story of a man named Anmol Kaji.
So how does a message like that, from literally halfway across the planet, lead to a brand new spiritual home for a whole community of people? That's what we're going to dive into today, the incredible story of the Haifa Nepali church.
All right, so let's set the scene. The year is 2019. Pastor Kaji is in Kathmandu, completely focused on his ministry. But then, his own mentors, his pastors, take a trip to Israel. And this one trip ends up changing the entire course of his life. So while they're there, walking through the historic streets of Jerusalem, they have this huge realization. They see that, yeah, there are Nepali fellowships in places like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but Haifa? Nothing. It was a spiritual void. And they just got this incredibly powerful feeling that Pastor Kaji was the one meant to fill it. So right then and there, they picked up the phone and made that life-altering call. Okay, but it's one thing to get a call like that, right? How do you actually make it happen? I mean, moving to a whole new continent? That is a huge, huge undertaking. Let's see how this impossible-sounding idea actually became a reality.
And check out this journey. This was not a rash decision. After he got that call, he spent 2 whole years in prayer, just preparing. And then, something totally unexpected happens. A government work program, Israel's government-to-government program, opens up a path. And here's the kicker, the part that feels like it's straight out of a movie. He not only gets accepted, but he gets assigned directly to Haifa, the exact city he was called to. You just can't make this stuff up. So he arrives in Haifa, a city he was called to but had never actually seen before. And he quickly discovers that while there are Nepali Christians there, they're disconnected, they're isolated. Really, they're spiritually adrift.
And when you look at the logistics, you can see why. The nearest Nepali churches were in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. We're talking 100, even 170 kilometers away. For hardworking caregivers and laborers, a weekly journey like that was just out of the question. So you had this flock without a shepherd, a community without a home base. Now, this whole process didn't happen overnight. Pastor Kaji started small, just a few people gathering in an apartment. Then he learned there's another small group meeting separately. And this is where he makes a pivotal choice. Instead of competing, they decide to unite. They spent an entire year intentionally building bridges, healing what he called divided hearts, before the church was officially launched. And this new church, well, it quickly became so much more than just a building or a weekend service. For this community of migrant workers, it became a spiritual lifeline. The transformation was just profound. You can really see the before and after here. People went from feeling totally isolated and spiritually thirsty to suddenly being part of a connected family. It gave them a sense of belonging, a place they could finally call their spiritual home in a foreign land.
And this quote from Pastor Kaji, wow, it just says everything. Imagine the emotion, people coming up to him saying this is the first time they've been in a service in nearly a decade. They would start weeping just from singing the first song. That deep, profound spiritual hunger, that was the fuel that drove him to build this church against all odds.
And what's so fascinating is that this one story, the Haifa Nepali church, isn't an isolated event. It's actually part of a much larger global phenomenon that's been quietly unfolding for decades.
Yeah, a lot of observers have noted that as Nepali people have moved around the world for work, they haven't just brought their skills, they brought their faith. In fact, they've been described as a kind of missionary tribe, establishing these vibrant spiritual communities wherever they happen to settle. The sheer scale of this is staggering. From the Americas to Europe, the Middle East to Asia, there are now Nepali-speaking churches in over 120 nations. It's an incredible testament to a faith that travels. And that brings us to a final thought, and it's a powerful one. There's this incredible symbolism here, isn't there? A spiritual message that started in the Holy Land all those years ago is now being carried back full circle by people from the nation of Mount Everest. It really makes you wonder, what does this quiet global movement tell us about the future of faith in our totally interconnected world?